people are joining, please feel free to type your name and where you're coming from in the chat. And also, if you might be willing to share some questions that you have, which we might be able to speak to throughout our conversation here. I kind of like to keep things a little casual, sort of relaxed. And then we have a lovely activity that is going to be brought to us later in this college I'm very excited about. So with that, I would love to welcome our lovely guest presenter, Daylee Greene. Welcome. Thank you for joining us
Hello.
here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I think probably I would just start by asking you to introduce yourself and just let us know a little bit more about you and how you came to this work.
Yeah, I can do that. So I consider myself a quantum healing practitioner. Quantum healing just refers to any healing that doesn't happen within the physical realm. So it's essentially energy healing, and I can talk about that a little bit more down the road. I haven't always done this work. I actually spent my 20s in college, a whole decade. I got a bachelor's, a master's, and a PhD. I actually got a master's in marriage and family therapy, and then I never practiced. Went straight into my doctoral program, and I really enjoyed learning, and I think that's why I kept going to school. But I kind of knew while I was there that I was never going to apply those degrees in the way that everyone, I don't know, traditional society was thinking that, those degrees should be applied. And so I graduated and I did teach online. I taught online for the University of Alabama and like an online section of the University of Maryland for about 10 years. And I enjoyed it, but the whole time I just couldn't help but think that I was meant to be doing something else. I've always wanted to help, and that's why my areas of study have always been human development and things of that nature. But I was just teaching online. I was driving for Uber. I was a single mom. I was like trying to figure my life out and trying to decide, what in what way I was meant to help. Because it didn't feel like any of the paths available to me that were easily accessible or readily understood in the mainstream were really it. Like I loved kids, but I didn't really want to open a daycare. And my PhD was actually in adult development and aging. And I loved working in nursing homes, but I just, again, I was like, I don't think that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And then I started to really get into spirituality. My first daughter was actually stillborn about 10 years ago. And that really kickstarted my awakening. A lot of people find that they're awakening, which I don't know. I guess that term means something different for everyone. But it was just a huge shift in my understanding of life, honestly, and like why I'm here and what I'm supposed to do. And so when I had her and then lost her, I really started to question. I wanted to have more kids. I knew that. And I thought, well, why? Like what a traumatic experience to lose this child. Like, why would I want to possibly do that again? And if I were to be successful, what would that look like? Like, what would it be like to actually have the blessing of raising children? And so my children really have been a huge part of my awakening and my spirituality. And that really added to this sense that I had about whatever it was that I was here to do. I knew it wasn't going to seem very normal normal, whatever that means to others. It wasn't going to be kind of like a very well established path. And I was okay with that. I was just trying to figure it out. And I stumbled across the work of Dolores Cannon. She's probably the best known past life regression hypnotherapist. And it was just a YouTube link. And she was just talking. She was in like this like lazy boy recliner almost like on this stage. It all looked very odd. And she's just this sweet, like old Southern kind of like grandma energy. And she, to be perfectly honest, is kind of boring. And so the fact that, but like you cannot like look away from like her videos and as she's talking, like she just draws you in. It's like the energy and her storytelling was just magical. And she was talking about this theme, I guess, that she'd come across in all of her past life regressions, where people were being regressed back to past lives that were not human past lives. And essentially, what she was finding is that this was a common theme across clients who, they had never met and they weren't like familiar with each other. It's not like everyone was getting together and like making up stories to come and tell Dolores Cannon, but she had these like fantastical like themes and occurrences coming through, essentially about people reincarnating and having life after life in like other parts of the solar system, and then deciding they were going to come to Earth to help, essentially, to have a human lifetime and bring their energy here to help Earth or help humanity. She wrote a whole book on it called The Three Waves of Volunteers, and all of her books are just, they're just incredible, really. And as I was listening to this video of hers, I just knew. I was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. I had dabbled a little bit in some other spiritual things like Reiki healing and medical intuitive, and I loved it, and I saw the validity in it, but I was like, I don't think I can, I don't know, I don't think this is my cup of tea. So when I found Dolores Cannon, I was like, this is it. And she has an online, like an online teaching certificate. And so I did that. And then I ended up getting another certificate after that. And I've since made my own modality that I teach as well. And that was kind of it. I started seeing clients, and it hasn't always been easy, but it's just amazing to be living in my purpose finally after, almost 40 years, but it's been incredible, and I'm so blessed to be here. So
Thank you for sharing that. And I know you mentioned that you have been developing your own modality. Would you be willing to tell us a little bit about that?
yeah. So Dolores Cannon's method is called quantum healing hypnosis. And essentially, it is where a practitioner will read an induction script, which is a lot like a guided meditation. And the theory behind it is that people relax enough that their conscious mind takes a step back. It's like the conscious, the human, like the ego part of us that's always present and functioning when we're awake to keep us safe and help us think logically, right? It encourages that part of our experience to take a step back. For a lot of Dolores Cannon sessions, that part of the human experience for her clients checks out completely. And so for her clients, they're in a very deep level of trance. They're able to channel, which just kind of essentially means repeat information. They bring in the energy of their past life self or their higher self, like their soul, essentially, or higher dimensional beings, aliens. They're channeling that information, kind of like they're like a radio station, right? They're getting the right frequency to bring that information through. And then when they come out of their sessions, oftentimes they don't remember anything at all. They think that they were in their session for 10 or 15 minutes and they're like, gosh, did I fall asleep? I'm so sorry. Like, I don't remember what happened. And they've been out for like 2 hours, right? Channeling all of this information.
Wow.
That's essentially getting into a very deep level of trance. And I found that as I was moving through sessions with the clients who found me, they were not getting that deep. Every once in a while, I would have someone go really deep. And, you can just kind of tell in a person's voice and their body language and their demeanor just changes significantly. But a lot of my clients were still pretty conscious. It's like they were able to have their human, right, their everyday self interrupt or interfere or interject a little bit. A lot of the time that comes through as doubt or like questioning things like, I feel like I'm just making something up, or this is just what I want to see. But I saw that so many of my clients, their conscious minds were still present, but they were still having successful sessions. And so what I realized is that we don't need our conscious minds to take a step back, to be removed entirely. Our conscious mind, it's like, our everyday experiences and the us as we know it and as we're familiar with it, right? That can still be present, and us be able to access past lives and our spirit guides and our higher self, and honestly, literally anything that we want to access.
Mhm.
And the other thing is Dolores Cannon's method relies heavily on visualization. So a lot of her script is imagine the most beautiful place in the world, and what does it look like, and who is there, and what is there, and it's very heavy on the visuals. And a lot of my clients just aren't visual. Funny enough, I'm also not at all visual. They call it aphantasia, and it's essentially the inability to visualize anything. And those clients of mine were able to channel, they get into this state of consciousness, essentially, where they just trust what's coming through. It kind of comes in as a thought for some people, or they kind of hear what they're supposed to be saying and they repeat it. They trust it enough to just speak on it. And so people don't have to be visual in order to be successful. And so I decided that I wanted to kind of carry those energies forward, those experiences and those truths forward in a modality that can tap into that different experience for humans of having their conscious mind and their subconscious mind essentially present at the same time and working together in partnership rather than one being primarily forward and leading. When we're awake, it's the conscious mind, right? And when we go to sleep, it's obviously the subconscious or the higher self. And it was really important to me to be able to step into that. And so I made my own modality. It's very similar to Dolores Cannon's. And I call it timeline healing hypnosis. It's essentially just a different approach to a very similar experience. But the timeline healing portion is a little bit different for my modality, because when you're conscious and you go back into these lifetimes or up into the astral, into the quantum field, however you want to conceptualize it, and you're conscious, you can direct the session a little bit more. You can be more conscious and intentional about what you want to see and what you want to heal and participate in it a little bit more rather than.
Can I pause you
Yeah,
for just 1 second? I want
absolutely.
to I want to hear more, but I kind of want to talk about a piece that you brought up that I think is really
Yeah,
important for my audience, and the being able to visualize versus not being able to visualize. And I think that's kind of a distinct quality that can affect people's engagement with work like this. I think that, or feeling like I can't do this work because I don't visualize.
yeah.
And I was wondering if you might be able to talk a little bit more about either your own experience or what you observe in your clients when we go into these spaces. What is it like for someone who can't visualize versus what is it like for someone who does? And what are the different ways in which information comes through?
Yeah. So I think a lot of us focus on the visual aspect because we're such physical creatures, right? Like we just expect to process our environment and our experiences through our physical bodies, whether it's seeing something, hearing something, smelling, tasting, whatever. So for someone who's visual, they're going to go into a past life and I'm going to say, okay, take a look around. What do you see? And they're immediately going to report everything that they see because it's very much like a movie being played on a screen in front of their eyes, or it's like being in a dream and it feels real. Like you're just looking around and you're like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff to report. People who don't see anything usually they have to trust themselves a lot more. And it's just the knowingness of the information. So I have people do this exercise to kind of drive this point home a little bit. Imagine that you've been kidnapped, right? And this captor throws you in the back of their car. You're blindfolded. You have your hands tied behind your back, like you can't see anything. But you're in the car. You're driving on a windy road. You can tell. And then all of a sudden, they open the doors and they kick you out, and then they drive off. And you're just laying there. You're still blindfolded. Your hands are behind your back, so you can't take the blindfold off. And I want you to think about a couple of things. So first of all, how did you know that you were being put in a car? How did you know that you were driving on a windy road? And now that you've been, left somewhere, how is it that you're able to tell where you're at, right? Because if you can't see anything, then you're just processing your experiences with the rest of your senses, And if I were to say, that your captor left you in the middle of a forest somewhere, and you're imagining yourself with your blindfold still on, you can't see anything. How could you possibly know that you were in the middle of a forest? But you've already called that experience up into your mind, right? If you're blindfolded and you know you're in a forest, you're probably imagining that even if you can't see it. And you're just tapping into your other senses, right? You can hear things. Maybe you can hear birds chirping, or maybe it's nighttime and there are crickets. You can smell it. The forest smells very distinctly. And there's also just a feeling and a knowingness. Even if you're just sitting there and it's absolutely silent, you just kind of know where you're at, right? It's like that sixth sense, that intangible quality of being able to just know. And so that's the way that a lot of my non-visual clients will access this information in their sessions. And that's also the way that non-visual people can access their guidance through meditation, is just allowing that information to come through. It's a lot like if you're getting ready for dinner, for example, you're chopping up vegetables, and then all of a sudden you start thinking about your best friend, Rebecca, from kindergarten. You hadn't been thinking about Rebecca, you hadn't been thinking about school, you hadn't been thinking about childhood, and all of a sudden Rebecca's just in your head, and you're chopping onions, and you're like, why am I thinking about Rebecca right now? This is so weird. You didn't try, there was no effort. You're not even necessarily seeing her. You're just like, hey, I wonder how Rebecca's doing. It's like an unsolicited thought just comes to you. And we're all capable of doing this and tapping into it. But what a lot of people get tripped up on is trusting what comes through, because I don't know, we're all conditioned from birth to think that we're not, I don't know, good enough, or we're not powerful, or we're not able to do things. Lots of shame and guilt is imposed on children for make believe and fantasy and just trusting themselves and their intuition. So trust is really the most important part of being able to have these experiences without being able to see.
I
Does that
usually
answer your
also,
question?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
I
good.
also tend to tell my audience that they should, if they feel like, oh, am I imagining this? Like that your imagination is a helper on this journey, and that
Yeah.
it's often cluing you into when there's a part that is asking for attention or when you're receiving something, and just to trust your imagination as well.
Yeah. Dolores Cannon used to say, well, where does that come from?
Hmm.
Imagination is coming from somewhere. If you're imagining, I don't know, something, unicorns, I don't know. Well, why are you imagining unicorns and not mermaids? Like, well,
Yeah.
why is that the thing that your imagination decided to make up and bring forward, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I want to come back to what you were going to start telling us about your timeline healing hypnosis. And I just wanted to ask our audience, has anybody ever heard of timeline healing before? Because I know some people have, some people haven't. I know a lot of people have heard of past life regression before. So I'd love to know, if you're willing to put there in the chat, how many of you have heard of timelines, and or how many of you heard of past life regression before? I'd love to just see where we're at with our audience here. And so I kind of want to turn it back over to you and ask you to tell us a little more about your timeline healing hypnosis approach. And I will say, I was gifted Daylee's course, which was a lovely course to go through. And there's one metaphor that I kind of wanted to bring up because it helped me understand it so much. Was you had a metaphor about the raincoats, the different colored raincoats, and
Yeah.
diving into the bucket. But that's all I'm going to say. I want to hand it over to you and let you speak on it in your own language.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So, a timeline is basically a possible reality. It's either a reality that you personally already experienced, like your physical body moved through it, a reality, right? And an experience that happened. Or it's a potential, it was a possible reality, right? That never came to fruition, that your physical body didn't move through, right? So think about, and there are infinite possible timelines. And so I had a client one time who wanted to do a past life regression, and I can't remember what she wanted to ask about specifically, but when she regressed back, she was still in this lifetime, which happens. People who have a decent amount of trauma often will stay in their current lifetime in order to resolve that. It's really hard to move through all these different layers. Like the most immediate is like our present day life, right? And then like the last 10 or 20 years of our life, and then like childhood, right? And then you get out to like past lives, and then you get out to like other consciousness from planets and collectives, and it just keeps going out. And it's really hard if you're struggling to understand and move through the energy of the right here, just blast yourself off into like the consciousness of some collective from like another universe or whatever, right? And so this client, she stayed in her current lifetime, and she went back to the birth of her daughter. And it turns out it was a really traumatic experience for her. And so there are infinite possible timelines, but let's just talk about two possible timelines. She could have either gone into labor and had a timeline where she gave birth naturally at the hospital, right? It was pretty smooth. She had baby as she expected, no complications, the end, right? Another possible timeline is having complications and having to have a C-section. And so her soul chooses one of those two paths. And then that is the timeline. That was her reality and experience, is the one that her soul moved into. And for her, it was a very traumatic birth, a very upsetting experience. And so that was the timeline that her soul chose and that she ended up on, and then lived her whole life on that timeline. But the other one was also a possible reality. It was a possible timeline. She could have had an easy birth experience, and her soul and her body then would have been aligned to that timeline, and that she would have moved all through the rest of her life on that timeline. And so every decision that you make, everything that happens in life is a possible timeline, down to something as simple as a word choice or wearing makeup or not wearing makeup. The minutia of it all, when you start to really think about it, can be so overwhelming. So it's just best to think about it in a more broad sense, especially when you're first getting into all of this, is just a different decision puts you on a different timeline. And so for her, being conscious and aware, as even as mostly an observer, she was still able to interact a little bit. She could have stopped the whole session if she wanted, because her conscious mind was still present. She was able to investigate that timeline. So her higher self brought the birth timeline forward for her. And then she was able to use her conscious mind and participate in healing it. And I just asked her, I kind of coached her through, why don't we see this? Why don't we imagine this timeline ending in a way that you feel like is ideal? What would have been the most beautiful, perfect, amazing, wonderful way for this birth experience to unfold for you? And I told her it could have started the moment she went into labor. It could have started when she chose her partner. It could have started as a little girl, wherever she felt like she needed to go back to in order to rewrite this particular timeline, that's where she should go. And she did that. She just thought for a minute and it just came to her. She just trusted, and she started talking about how her birth plan from the beginning, she felt like it hadn't been respected. So she went through all these different details and just picked whatever option in the moment as she was rewriting this story brought her the most love and peace. And so that's what we had. That's how we healed that timeline. And so moving forward, her physical body didn't literally go back in time to have a different physical experience, right? But her energy, her consciousness did go back in time to release the old energy of that experience and to welcome in the energy of a new, more healed, beautiful, peaceful experience. And so the energy of her birth and the foundation for that whole experience, because all of the physical things that we see are actually built upon energy. And so the energy for her birth was transformed from a lower vibrational, upsetting, traumatic energy and experience and timeline into a beautiful, positive, fully healed timeline. And so when that happens, it essentially ripples that energy out. It takes a little bit of time for the energetic to trickle down into the physical. But anything that had been impacted by her having that harder, traumatic experience at birth is going to reap the benefit of having healed, having brought a different energy into that timeline.
I love that. Yeah, and we're getting some responses also from the audience. There's one question. I'm wondering about trauma's impact on the ability to engage in timeline or regression. I have complex trauma from childhood and abuse, and I spend a good amount of time dissociating.
Yeah. It's pretty common that people, I have a lot of clients that have had a lot of traumatic experiences in childhood, for sure. The general rule is that, first of all, everyone is different and unique. But the higher self doesn't bring forward anything that a client isn't able to process and handle, you know? So I did a regression for someone one time who had been very open. She's actually a fellow healer and content creator on Instagram and TikTok. She'd been really open about really, really hard, traumatic childhood sexual abuse. And her higher self, as we were like going through these different layers, started to speak on a traumatic experience with a family member. And keep in mind that the client is channeling this information, right? It's her physical body was saying the information that the higher self wanted to express, but it's controlled by the higher self. And so my client started saying something about one of her uncles or whatever it was, and she stopped mid-sentence, and she said, it was the higher self speaking. She said, I actually, that's really uncomfortable for her. I don't think she's ready for that. And it doesn't need to be spoken out loud anyway. The point has gotten across, and we're going to move on now. She's going to get the closure that she needs, and we don't have to rehash all of that. And so it's so different for everyone, but it's absolutely possible for people to be regressed. And the
Mm.
regression, again, a lot of people, that word usually means getting into a deep level of trance. Um, a lot of people don't feel safe enough to be vulnerable enough to allow that to happen, which is another reason that I created my modality. We don't have to completely check out in order to address these things. And like I said, the more trauma, the more heavy energy that people have stored within their own body and within their own like auras and energy field from their current life experiences, the more likely that they are to just stay in this lifetime to address that, to look at it, to be aware of it, to be observant of it and to release it and let it go. A lot of the time, the only thing that we need to do to heal these things is to allow it to just exist, to cry, to have an emotional release, and that's how the energy finally moves and flows.
Yeah. I want to just check in with you, do a time check. How long do you need for the guided piece?
Probably about 30 minutes.
Okay, so maybe we can transition to that now so that we can make sure to get all of that in because
That sounds good.
I will have to end right at 4.
Yeah.
And I think this might also address, there was another question mentioned that sometimes I feel like I'm too awake and conscious to really be hypnotized. But I think you kind of spoke to that a little bit earlier
Yeah.
about how we don't need to be fully like out in order to gain the benefits of this type of modality.
Yeah, I think one of the examples that I use that's the easiest for most people to understand is think about a medium, right? A psychic medium who's able to tap into people's crossed loved ones. They're not eyes closed, deep meditative state, like everything else has to be completely gone and dark and quiet for them to tap into that. It's not exactly the same thing as meditation, but it is accessing an energetic realm, right? That's not here in the physical. And so it's very possible to access your divine guidance without having to be hypnotized or be in a deep trance like meditative state. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to hand the mic over to you for guiding us. I know you have a special guided journey for us, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, so the only thing that you guys need to do is be ready. There's 2 parts to it. The first one is seeing a past life, and then I'll kind of bring you guys out of that and like back into your bodies. And you'll want to, usually it's ideal to have like a piece of paper and a pen, but everyone's on their phones already. So if you want to just like open up some notes and like write down the highlights of what you saw, that can be really helpful because it's kind of like a dream. As soon as you wake up from a dream, you think, oh my gosh, I remember all the details perfectly. And then like an hour later, you're like, what happened again? I don't remember. So writing it down, I'll just give you guys like 5 minutes to write down whatever it was that came through, can be really, really helpful. And that's kind of it. The only other piece of advice I have is trust yourself. If you're like, I'm not seeing anything, stop looking for it. You're not going to see it. And continuing to focus on the visuals or the lack of visuals, you're just blocking yourself from allowing whatever your guidance is to come through. You might hear it, You might feel it. For a lot of people, it starts as a physical feeling, like an emotion. A lot of people will be like, I feel so sad right now, and I don't know why. Just allow it. It's okay to feel that sadness and let it come through. Usually that's the first step for people in seeing the rest of a past life, the rest of like that scene or that experience. So just allow it to come through. All right. So if everyone wants to close their eyes and get really relaxed and set the intention to allow this information to come through and just being open to however it wants to present itself, that would be good. Take some deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. Just relaxing, tapping into that version of yourself that is absolutely successful at everything that they set out to do. Allowing that confidence to come in. Breathing in, confidence, divine source energy, the protection of your ancestors, your guardian angels. And when you exhale, you're releasing limiting thoughts and beliefs, setting an intention to trust whatever it is that comes through, not questioning it, just allowing it. Just allow it to be. I'm going to ask you guys to see some things, but really what I'm asking is that you just allow those energies in. You're imagining it, telling yourself a story. You might see it, you might feel it or hear it. You might just know it. Listening to my words, you're allowing that energy, that reality to be created for you, for your little healing space in the quantum that you're creating. So as you are imagining things, as we move through the meditation, you're seeing them, hearing them, smelling them, feeling them, using all of your senses. Continuing to breathe deeply, imagining that it's your heart breathing that air in and out. Your heart moving that beautiful divine energy throughout your body, connecting your body, your mind, and your soul, peaceful and relaxing. I want you to imagine that you're on a walk through a large, damp forest full of trees, moss, forest critters. There's so many things to look at, so many things to see as you move through this forest. Plants, animals, insects, an occasional fellow hiker. I want you to imagine as many details as you can to really bring this picture to life using all of your senses, hearing, seeing, smelling, feeling. You're going to leave that scene now. Next, you find yourself at a lookout on a cliff overlooking the water. I want you to take note of what you see as you look down this cliff and out onto the water. Maybe there are boats, seagulls in the air, a pod of whales in the ocean. You can feel the cold breeze from the water on your face. Just looking down, taking it all in, using all of your senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? Now, I want you to imagine that you're standing in the middle of a large university campus. There's a celebration going on today. You can hear the commotion from a parade that's making its way across the grassy lawn that you're standing on. You're starting to pay more attention as it gets closer. It gets louder and louder. You can hear the people talking, cheering, and yelling. You can feel the vibration through the ground underneath your feet. You can feel the energy, the excitement of that celebration as it gets closer. You're just standing there quietly in stillness, observing. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you feel? I want you to leave that scene now and move on, finding yourself in a playground, a familiar childhood scene. I want you to see yourself swinging on a swing, feeling the motion of swinging back and forth, the wind against your face, enjoying the weightlessness of going up and down, up and down, reliving being a child. Nowhere else you need to be. The innocence and the joy, taking in what you hear, see, feel, and smell. Now, I want you to see the outside of the place that you live right now. You see it every day. I want you to just picture the outside of it. I want you to picture the front door, that door you go in and out of every day. I want you to imagine yourself walking in the front door, opening it, walking through. What's the first room that you come into? What do you see as you take a look around? Furniture, the people, decorations. What is it? What do you see? Then, moving away from that first room into your bedroom, taking note of furniture, the color of the walls, pictures, decorations. I want you to look at the walls. I want you to pick any one of the walls that doesn't already have a door. Any wall without a door, I want you to imagine it. And then I want you to imagine that there is a door on that wall now, appearing where there never was one before. Just imagine that there's a door there. I want you to picture yourself walking over to that door, opening it, moving through it. As you move through that door, there are steps. They go down, 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 down. You're going to move through the door, go down those steps. Down, down, down. When you get to the bottom of those steps, there's a long hallway. There's a little bit of light in there, just enough for you to see where you're going. At the end of the hallway, you can see another door, an opening down there. I'm going to go ahead and walk down that hallway towards that opening. Now you're at the opening, the end of the hallway. You're standing right in front of it. And you know that this is the opening to your past. Whatever this past life is that your higher self wants you to see, you know that when you step through this opening, you're stepping into this past life, finding the information that your higher self wants you to know today. And now, I want you to go ahead, step through that opening. You're moving into this past life, stepping through, and then taking a minute to just look around. I want you to take a second, anchor in to your surroundings, to this environment. Are you inside or outside? Do you just know where you are, either intuitively or because you've been here before? What do you see? What do you feel? What do you hear? What do you know? You can look in front of you. You can look behind you. You can look up, look down. I want you to look down at your body. Do you even have a body? What does it look like? Do you have any clothes on? Is this body male or female? Is it young or old? Just taking all of this new information in. Next, I want you to move yourself, just like magic, because you're that powerful in this quantum realm. You're going to move yourself to the place where you live in this lifetime, the place where you eat and sleep and live. I want you to imagine that you're there now, the place where you live. What does it look like from the outside? What color is it? Are there windows? What does the front door look like? I want you to move through the front door. Tell me what it is that you see when you move through the front door. Taking in whatever's in that room, furniture or people, whatever's in there, just allowing it. Moving to the kitchen, seeing what that looks like. What does it feel like? What's the temperature in the house? What does the energy feel like? Feel clean and tidy? Does it feel musty and stagnant? Is it hot, sticky? What's it like? And then moving to your bedroom, wherever you sleep, taking that in. Do you sleep with anyone in this bedroom? Do you have a partner? Children? What's this bedroom like? Is it good vibes in there? Do the vibes feel off? What's that like? Moving away from your home, I want you to see what it is that you do for a living in this lifetime. Whatever it is that you spend most of your time doing, a career or a job, maybe you're not employed, but there's something that you do with your time, most of your time. What is that thing? I want you to see it now. What's happening? What is it that you do for work? or with the majority of your time? You'll leave that scene now, and you're going to move on to an important day. Your higher self is going to help you find this important day. The human part of you, your conscious mind, doesn't have to work at all. It's just going to come to you this important day, allowing that information, that energy to anchor in. I want you to take a look around and see what it is that's happening on this important day. What are you doing? Who else is there? What are they doing? What does it feel like on this day? Just taking it all in, allowing it, peaceful and calm. We're going to move on to the last day in this lifetime. The very last day that you lived in this lifetime. You're going to see it just as an observer. If it was uncomfortable, painful, difficult, you're not going to experience those things now. You'll just observe it. I want you to move forward to that day so that you can see what happens. What do you see? What is happening on that last day in your life? You're on the other side now in this lifetime. You've passed on. You're on the spirit side. Whatever has happened has already taken place. With this new perspective now, you can look back. Hindsight is 2020. You can understand with clarity the purpose of this lifetime. Why did your soul choose to have that experience? Just allow that information to come in now. Allowing it, committing it to your memory. You're going to drift and float away from all of those experiences, that whole entire lifetime. You're going to leave it there, and you're going to move on now from that past life. You're going to move into this beautiful space in the quantum. For the sake of time, we're just going to take you to meet your guides now. You're going to feel yourself moving through space and time, guided by your higher self, literally just floating, cozy, safe, moving through space, the quantum field, a portal, whatever you want to conceptualize. But whatever it is, it's fun and it's safe. You wish you could do it all the time because it's pleasant and it's peaceful. And as that movement slows down a bit, you recognize that your higher self has brought you to a beautiful, beautiful place. Even if you're not really able to see it, you can just feel it. Whatever it feels like to be in an incredible, energetically beautiful space, that's where you're at. And I want you to just look around and take note of where this place is, what it feels like, where you know you are if you can't see. What does that feel like? Are you inside or outside? Are you even on Earth? If you're on a different planet, what planet are you on? Different dimension. Just taking it all in, allowing it. And your main spirit guide now, whoever it is that you're working the closest with in your life right now, because many of us have many guides, but your main spirit guide for your life right now, they are in this space with you now. They've just appeared they're with you now and you're able to interact with them, whether you see them or just know them. Maybe you're able to understand what they look like, even if you can't visually see them. But they're there with you now. That guide is, they have a message for you. They have something they want you to know. They're going to either tell you, give you a note, communicate telepathically, but they have something they want to tell you. So I want you to receive that message now, whatever it is that they want you to know. Allowing that message, just letting it come through. You're going to thank your guide for that message. Tell them how grateful you are. But before they leave, I want you to take note of this guide. Whether you can see them or not, it doesn't matter. Are they human? Do they feel or look familiar? Are they male or female or neither one? What do they look like? What are they wearing? Just getting an imprint of that energy makes it a little bit easier to connect to them in the future. You can say goodbye to them now, give them a hug or shake their hand or whatever you want, sending them on their way. And you can move your consciousness, move your awareness slowly back into your body now, to your physical environment in the room that you're in right now, moving your consciousness, your energy back into your body and start stretching and moving and allowing that energy to flow through your physical body again, just becoming present and aware, waking up and coming back to this reality, come back to earth. Always forget how long those take, so I smushed them together.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, no problem. Did you have anything come through?
I found myself thinking about, so I do have a guide that is with me a lot. I think his name is Ruth Gar.
Yeah.
And he came through pretty strong.
Yeah.
And there are some past life, I've done some past life work before, and
Yeah.
one of those lives came up again.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting because I often think about like what were the themes that came up in those lives, and
Yeah.
how are those themes. I often feel like sometimes those themes emerge again in the present life.
Yeah.
If, you know,
Yeah.
is that something that happens often?
Yeah, it is. Sometimes people come in with like an energetic imprint, like sticky residue from like one significant past life, and there's just tons of it, and it's a big part of what they have to work through in their current lifetime. Other times people just there's just lessons and there's a little bit of karma or there's a little bit of something from several different past lives or whatever. So everyone's journey is very unique.
Sure. There's someone asking if we can have a moment to write before talking. So
Yes, no
unfortunately,
problem.
yeah,
I
certainly
that
you
was
can
it.
take your
I
time.
I put the what am I trying to say? The spirit guide part, I put the two parts together. To be honest, there's not really a need to separate them out. I usually, that was Dolores Cannon's method to like do them both very separately, but I was like, nah, I'm confident. We'll just move right into the spirit guide portion so we can get both parts in before you need to go. So yeah,
Sure.
and everyone, please feel free to write down. No one has to talk, please.
Yeah.
No problem.
If anybody would like to share some of what came through for them, you're certainly
Yeah,
welcome to put that in the chat, so we
I'd
can
love to
take a
hear
look.
about it.
Yeah. I do, while you're writing down your thoughts, and or if you're adding something in the chat there, if somebody wanted to work with you individually or wanted to follow up with you in any of your services, I put a link to your website there, but I wanted to ask if there's anything in particular that you'd recommend, or anything
Yeah.
that you'd like to share.
My website is a great place to like understand my different offerings and kind of get a feel for my energy. But social media is the best way to see like lots of my current content and to get a hold of me. Instagram is by far the easiest place to like message me. And that's just daily.rose, daily spelled Dayoee, and then dot rose on Instagram. And TikTok is the same, daily.rose. I have a YouTube as well, which is linked. I believe it's linked. You can find it in like the link tree on my Instagram. And I have sessions, like full hour and a half, 2 hour long sessions on there that you can kind of listen to and either get some important and valuable, advice or information, or just kind of see what a past life regression is like. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And for those of you that are wanting to process more, unfortunately, we do have to end on time today, but I did want to invite those of you that are in my private Facebook groups. You are invited to share your experiences to the feed if you would be interested and willing. And we can also generate some discussion that way. We do have someone sharing their experience. They saw a hot air balloon and a man that looked like the 1600s, top hat, big gray curled mustache, and a suit.
yeah. And, it's important to know, like, if you see a past life that comes through and you're like, what is this? Is weird. I don't even know how this would apply. Like, what? You can just set an intention to either have that information come through in your dream state, be like, I want to understand what this is. Send me some dreams to make this make sense. Or you can just go into meditation, and you don't even have to meditate with like your eyes closed. You can just like sit and get cozy and just like let your mind wander and be like, I want to understand. And then just let all the thoughts come through. And that's your guidance.
Yeah. One thing that we do in my Hungry Love program, we have a few Hungry Love active and alumni folks here today, is we will sometimes do non-dominant handwriting. So
Yes.
we might ask whatever comes through with the dominant hand
Yep.
a question, and then allow the non-dominant hand to answer.
Yeah, you can assign an aspect of yourself to your non-dominant hand. You can talk to your inner child that way, your higher self, a past life aspect, literally anything.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining. Oh, we have one
no
more
problem.
question. When we went back to the quantum, I ended up on another planet, and I've been there before. There's a
Yeah.
beach at night with fire, and my guide was there, dressed kind of like in more of an indigenous
Um,
dress. And I got to hug her, and it was very cool.
That's amazing. I love that.
Thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd love to hear more of these experiences if you're willing to share them in the Facebook group, and I can also share some of them with Daylee as well, following
Good.
this activity. And I would
Yep.
just like to reiterate, if you'd like to work with Daylee some more, be sure to check out her website. And I believe it's just dailyrose.com. Is that right?
Yep. That's
Okay.
right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And her Instagram is hilarious. I mean, also deep, but you have some pretty
Yeah.
hilarious posts too, which I
Yep.
think puts things in perspective. We're
If
having,
you
I don't
if
know
you don't laugh, sometimes you just cry. So
exactly. We have lots of thank yous coming in. Thank you, thank you,
yeah,
thank
no
you. Yeah,
problem.
we
You
really
guys are so
appreciate that.
welcome. It's my honor.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll reach out to you afterwards just to debrief.
That's great. Yep.
And thank you so much. Bye,
Yeah, thank
everybody.
you. Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.